Welcome back, and here we're going to check out my fifth HTML page. And the moment you've all been waiting for, we've got some colors, we've got some writing, we've got a few things on our page, but what we don't have is the thing that made the internet grand. Well, maybe not. That's probably the information sharing, but what you're looking for is some pictures, because that is one step closer to cat videos that everybody was looking for on the internet. So here I have Tim Berners-Lee, creator of the World Wide Web and HTML. Arguably one of the most influential people, but of course it was a collaborative process. But we've got a picture of him on here. We've even got some different sized pictures here. So let's have a look at how to do that. So I'm going to go view page source on here. And if we look down, we've got a bunch of the stuff that's the same here. And I see a paragraph there, and there jumps out at me right here. This IMG SRC is Tim Berners-Lee. And notice it is the second of our self-closing tags, because just like the break tag, we don't need to start a picture and then stop putting a picture in. We just put the picture in. So we don't want anything in the middle to get cluttered up there. So we just have a self-closing tag where we put the picture in and then we stop it. In order to replicate this, we should note a couple things. First of all, pictures do not get saved into a web page. Remember, the web page is just a bunch of text that you've been writing along as we go. What we're saying here is, at this point, I want to put an image in, and the source of that image is going to be this file name. So I have to go and get the file and then put it in the same folder where my web page is. And that's a critical thing we should look at. And you'll see some problems later on if we don't do that correctly. But I am just going to go grab some picture from the internet here. I'm going to go find an awesome picture. There are some spectacular pictures there out on the internet. If you're going to swipe one from the internet, like this fabulous stormtrooper here, or this, wow, that crazy eye, or I like that one, you are awesome here. Make sure you do not right click on the Google Images and then save that image, because if you go and have a look at this, if I open that image in a new tab, you'll see that these pictures are all quite small. They're tiny so that Google can show you lots of them without taking lots of bandwidth up here. And I would like to grab one of these, but let's grab the stormtrooper here. What you want to do is, before you save it, make sure you click on it. You'll get the large version, and you'll actually see this is a huge picture. If we were to go open image in new tab, you'll see we get a really big version of the picture, nice clear one. So make sure you save these. Now, ultimately, it's best if you're using your own pictures, but for our learning purposes, let's grab a few off the internet. So I am going to right click and save image as. And I've got my folder here where I'm going to, I think I've already saved it. Now, something to keep in mind when you type this out, it's going to need to be exactly spelled correctly, just like in a lot of codes. And if you make spelling mistakes, you're going to have problems in your web page. So you're going to find a lot of the names, if you're grabbing pictures off the internet, are terrible. Make sure you keep them nice and simple and descriptive like you do for your other stuff. So here I'm going to call this Trooper Dirt Bike. And the other thing you need to notice is what kind of picture it is. In this case, it's a JPEG picture. It has that .jpg at the end. You can't just change the letters and change the picture. You have to use what came with it, but just remember what it is. So I'm going to save that there. Now, if I get into my page, which if we have a look at it right now, you'll see looks pretty plain like this. I want to put the picture in at the top here. So I've got a little extra space, and I'm going to try that same idea. IMG for image, SRC for source. It equals, in quotation marks, the exact name, and I think I called it, and hey, go check if you've forgotten, Trooper Dirt Bike. So Trooper Dirt Bike. I like to keep them all lowercase so that I don't have to remember if it's uppercase or not. Period JPG. And the quotation marks. And then don't forget that is a self-closing tag, so we get that slash there. And if I save this and then go have a look at it in Chrome, you can see, wow, we got that picture there. It is giant. We can scale it down a little bit, but still that's a really, really big picture. And something we'll have talked about in class is the best way of fixing this problem is just to get a better picture, or to bring this picture into some photo editor and make it smaller if you know how to do that. The reason is because large pictures that are too big for displaying on your page are really not that useful for the web. And they are very large, and so they're going to chew up people's bandwidth and slow down their general internet experience. So as a web designer, it's something you should be doing to better serve your clientele. However, this one's pretty close to, say, a full page spread that I want, and is, if I'm not mistaken, not that large. It's 152K, so it's not out of range of a large picture. So I can also use some styling to change this, just to make it a little bit better if it's not out of normal. So there are a couple styles that we can have. There's lots of styles we can put on this, but the first one I'm going to say style equals, that's going to help me out here, is I can change the width to make something a little more reasonable. And in general, probably a good width for a picture, if you wanted a big spread picture, is about 1,000 pixels. So I'm going to go 1,000 px if that's what you're looking for a full screen. Now that's going to depend on the size of the person's monitor and things like that, but that's a pretty safe sized image right now. And if I hit save, we can say we've now taken this picture and styled it. And I'm going to just zoom up to my 100%. There you go. And now we've got a pretty decent full-sized picture that takes up most of my screen if I wanted that. We have some other options, because this is dependent on, you'll see if I make my browser window smaller, or if I'm doing a mobile device, I'm going to lose some of that picture. So I have another option for styling images, but keep in mind this width style can be done to a lot of different elements. Oh, and just before we move on to that, you'd say, well, if I can do width, can I do height? And absolutely, you can change the height to the 1,000 pixels. And now you're going to get 1,000 pixels tall. Notice it scales the whole thing. You can, in fact, if you wanted, do both of these things with, however, I don't generally recommend doing this. I'm going to make that 200 pixels and 1,000 pixels height, because if you force the browser to display it in both directions, you're going to get some squishing going on here, and you're going to get that ratio really looking not great. However, if you need to force something into a particular size, you can do it. But if you only do width or height, then the browser is going to scale the opposite direction proportionally, so that the picture will always look good. So in general, we just go with one of these here. So in fact, I'm going to go to a 500 pixel width and get rid of the height there. The reason we have to put that px for that pixels, there we go there, is that you have another option for width, and that is I'm going to go 50% rather than the px. And 50% is a bit confusing, because a lot of people think that means half the size of the picture, of the original picture, but it's actually 50% of the thing that contains that picture. In this case, the picture is in the web page, so it will be half of the size of the web page. And notice here now, if I shrink this screen down, the picture always takes up 50% of the size. And this is great for what we call fluid layouts. So that, say I'm trying to design a website that looks good on my phone, which is probably more in this orientation, and at the same time work well for a desktop, then a percentage might be a good way of doing that. So that it doesn't matter the size of the screen, I'm always going to be able to see the picture, and it's always going to take up a certain percent of the real estate of my screen. Just keep in mind, though, it's the thing that it is inside of. So if you happen to, say, put a picture inside a paragraph, and then you made the paragraph 50% and you made the picture 50%, well, that picture is going to end up about 25%, half of the screen. So that's our first thing to do with our pictures. So we can change the size. The other thing we can do is you're going to see that images can problematically, put a bunch of writing here, take up a weird amount of the screen. So notice I've got my nice picture here and a bunch of writing, but because that picture is so tall, none of this real estate is available for the writing to go into. So the writing, it basically, the picture acts like a character, one letter of my writing, and it makes this line incredibly tall, and I've lost all ability to use this extra space. If I keep writing, it's going to go down, 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 down. So we have a way of remedying this, and it's basically it's because the picture wants to take up the whole line. It wants to dominate this entire line here, and this just follows suit. But we lose the ability to do that. But what we can do is introduce what's called a float. And floating a picture means it goes either to the left side of the page or the right side of the page, and then frees up the space beside it. So I'm going to take this picture here, and I'm going to add another style here, the float style. And you can only float left or right. So you only have those options. Just going in the middle doesn't work very well. First of all, it makes it very challenging to read, having a picture kind of breaking up your text in the middle of a page. So the designers have decided left or right are your two options. If I float to the left, the picture is going to go to the left. And let me just bring up a little whiteboard here for us. So think about this as being my, this as being my page, and I have a picture inside that page. At the moment, it takes up all of this extra space as well, even though it doesn't need it. But by floating it either to the left or to the right, the picture goes there, and then this becomes available for anything that was below. It kind of creates a vacuum, and this gets sucked up into that end space, or this has the ability to move up into the space above because it's now free. It's not being taken up by that picture. And it's probably easier to see than to describe. So I'm going to save that and look at my page. And you can see now here, the pictures on the left, all of that stuff that was previously excluded from use is now available. And since it can fit, all of the text comes up into it there. If I were to have a whole bunch of text, let me just grab a copy of that. Get a whole bunch of writing there and have a look at it there. We still need some more actually. Well, if I scale it up a little bit, you're going to see that the writing now wraps around and creates this kind of nice nested picture here. We can fix how close that is a little bit later with other styles, but that's the beauty of the float there. You get this wraparound text, and it basically just allows you to use all of the space on your page. As mentioned, you also have the other option of floating to the right. Even though the picture is before this stuff, it's still going to go to the right side of the page and is going to leave the empty space here for everything that comes after it to fill up as much as it needs or has the ability to. So there are our two other options there. The last thing that a lot of people want to do with floating is they always want to make a picture go into the center somehow. We can't currently do that with any of the styles that we have. You'd think it'd be really simple. And in fact, we have aligned stuff in the center of the page. Notice we have this text align. However, notice it's text aligned, so it is not going to apply to pictures. And if we get rid of that float right and we were to say text align center as my other style, you will notice nothing happens there. It doesn't work for us. So at the moment, and there are ways of doing this, but at the moment, it should come at the end now here, slash. At the moment, the only kind of trick we have is to actually put a paragraph tag let's get their style equals. And I think I did this on mine. We have a paragraph tag here, and then we can actually, I'll just do it at the end here, so all the writing will be done. But what we're doing is I'm centering this paragraph. The picture happens to be inside the paragraph, and therefore we kind of trick it to centering. Oh, well, it's going to have to go actually before that. My mistake. We would have to put this here. There we go. Just because all that writing takes up the space there as well. There we go. So I've now tricked it by putting a paragraph here around this picture, centering the paragraph, and therefore the text or the picture actually centers itself as well. It's the trick we have right now. We have better ways of doing this later on, but for now, if you really need to center a picture, that is our only method. So, couple things to think about with the pictures. Number one, that picture's got to live right here next to your index page. It cannot go somewhere else. The computer is not going to look for it. Secondly, you're often going to get something, let's just do this here. You're going to get something that looks like this. Depending on the browser, could be a red X, could be this little broken picture here. This is called a broken image link. And it is really, really common, especially as a beginner designer. There are three major reasons you're going to get this. The number one reason is, like I just did here, you're going to make a spelling mistake. And that is super common. And what it's basically saying is, I don't know where this picture is. There is no Trooper F Dirt Bike in the folder. So I'm just going to say, I know a picture is supposed to be here, but I don't know which picture you want. So double check your spelling. A good reason why we name our images smart names with kind of a standardized capitalization rule and so forth. The second reason is you downloaded that picture. Let me grab that here. I'm just going to cut it. And you put it in your downloads folder or something. It's sitting right here, but my website is right here. And even if I spell that correctly, I am going to get the exact same idea. Refresh, broken image, saying I can't find the picture. I don't know where it is. There is supposed to be one here. So it's lazy. You have to put that picture right next to the web page. The computer's not going to go find it for you. So if I drag that back into my folder and I simply hit refresh, you'll see the picture appears as such. The third major reason that you're going to get that broken image link here is that you've perhaps either forgotten or put the wrong file extension. And there are numerous and growing numbers of picture types that the internet will use. The most common one is a GIF or a PNG or a JPG. Although Google has now invented, I think, a JFIF, and there's a couple other ones that are kind of emerging out there. But the big three are that JPG, the GIF, or the PNG. And you have to make sure that you have put the correct one here based on how the picture was saved. So you should be able to see it when you download that picture or when you save the picture. In this case, it was a JPEG, pretty common, or a PNG are the two big at the moment, although this ebbs and flows as new technologies come out. So make sure that file extension is the correct name. If you were to put a GIF there, which is common in a lot of animated pictures, you're also going to get that same thing. All of them are really doing the same idea. This picture doesn't exist. It can't find it for you. So it's telling you that there is a broken one. Another one I get a lot of people, just as a fourth kind of throwaway, sometimes people reverse that and they get the image SCR. They just make that little spelling mistake there. In this case, you don't necessarily get a broken image, you just don't get the picture at all. But that is one I've seen in my years of teaching web design. So there you go. Pictures, remember, do not get saved in the web page. They've got to live right there, which is one of the reasons we keep nice, neat, tidy folders with all of our web stuff in one spot, and make sure we give good names so that we can put some pictures in and make our websites even that much more interesting.